Okay, let's get into the Odyssey books 5 through 10. We read the first 4 books last week, and we call those the Telemachy because they focus just on Odysseus' son, Telemachus, and the road to manhood that he's trying to take, becoming the man of the house, becoming not just a grown-up, but a leader. His dad is a king, and so he has a lot of shoes to fill. His house is overrun with suitors who are trying to get his mother, his inheritance, and Athena comes in to help mentor him and guide him, and ultimately encourages him to take a trip to Pylos in Sparta to see if he can find news of his father. So, as we look at our map, we need to realize that the story, as an epic, is going to pick up in the middle of Odysseus' journey rather than at the beginning. So, while we know Odysseus left the Battle of Troy on his way to get home to Ithaca, here at number 16, the story isn't going to pick up with him leaving Troy. The story is about to pick up. We're going to get our first glimpse of Odysseus here on the island of Calypso. Okay, here she is, the island of Calypso. So we're going to pick up Odysseus here. You can see he just has 15 and 16 left to get home. So we're starting in the middle, and then he's going to fill us in on what has happened so far. See if you can remember, what do we call a descriptive adjective or noun that describes a quality of a character? It is an epithet. So as you read these next few books, see if you can identify the character or characters that goes along with each of these epithets. So we pick up in book 5 on the island of Ogygia, which is where the nymph, the beautiful Calypso, lives. So as the book starts, we see Hermes like skimming over these beautiful waves, and the description of the island is beautiful. It's like a paradise full of birds and flowers and life. So look at the way that setting is described. And this is the stop on Odysseus' trip that holds him up the longest. So Calypso keeps Odysseus here as a sort of unwilling husband or consort because she's in love with him. He was shipwrecked up on her island and she doesn't want him to leave. And I say sort of unwilling because he was there for 7 years and there were some shenanigans. But the first time we meet Odysseus, he's on the seashore just crying, looking out across the ocean, wondering if he's ever going to get home. So it's another important thing for us to notice here that Calypso is going to be the second woman that we see in the story. And unlike Penelope, Odysseus' wife, Calypso is a goddess. So, or maybe not a goddess proper, but she's a nymph. She's definitely not all mortal the way that Penelope is. So we want to look for similarities and differences between the two so far. We open on Calypso with this beautiful singing voice inside a nice, beautiful cave, and she is weaving at her loom with a golden shuttle. And we want to notice that she's at her loom because this is something that Penelope was doing as well. So we need to see that this is an important aspect of womanhood in early Greek culture. She wears these beautiful robes, and you can see her in the picture here receiving our messenger god, Hermes. He's got his winged helmet and his winged sandals. He's got his symbols going on there. And when she hears Zeus's commands, she is obedient. She agrees to let him go, but not before she tempts Odysseus with eternal life. She offers him nectar and ambrosia, the food and drink of the gods, and if he were to drink it, he could live forever with her and be immortal. So Odysseus is obedient to the will of the gods, and when Odysseus declines her offer in a very diplomatic way, which is something that he's known for, she provides him with food and supplies and helps him to build a raft and sets him off. So Odysseus sails for 17 days on that raft until he sees Phaeacia, again, Phaeacia, in the distance. And the Phaeacians are known for their shipbuilding, for their mastery of the seas, and really that's something he could have used 7 years ago when he started his journey. But unfortunately, his raft doesn't quite make it all the way there. A very angry god sends a storm that shipwrecks him, but luckily he avoids drowning. So after being tossed by this big storm and targeted by Poseidon, he finally lands on the shores of Phaeacia. And if you look at the map, you can see that he's getting closer and closer to home. So he's nearing the end of his journey. And so we meet the Phaeacian royal family. There's King Alcinous and Queen Arete. And Arete is a really famous woman in Greek mythology. She's known for her kindness and intelligence. And then we meet their daughter, Princess Nausicaa. And Odysseus just seems to have really great luck in meeting beautiful women on his journey. So while Penelope is at home pining for his return and being a perfect picture of wifely devotion, he is, I don't know, maybe enjoying himself a little bit. And so the book starts with Athena using the princess to help Odysseus. And so we see some more interference of the gods into the actions and the roles of men. So Athena gives her this dream, which spurs the princess to take her maids and her wedding clothes and go down to do some like ritual preparations for marriage. And so she loads up this big wagon and they go down to the shore to bathe and wash and play. And when out of nowhere enters this storm-tossed, wet, dirty, naked guy asking for help. And unlike her maids, Princess Nausicaa approaches him. She doesn't run in fear. We can see in her reactions that she is bold, she is compassionate, and she clearly takes the rules of hospitality very seriously, because remember, this was a time when they believed any stranger could be a god in disguise. So with Princess Nausicaa's help, Odysseus is clothed and fed and makes his way to the court of King Alcinous, where it's just an elaborate, detailed description of all of the ways that Alcinous extends hospitality to Odysseus. There are stories, there's entertainment, there's music, there's food and gold. So as you read through these few sections here, you want to be looking for how hospitality is extended. And there's this really great bit of irony when one of the singers is singing about Odysseus's journey and his like war fame, and they don't even know that it's him yet. So look to see how they extend hospitality. And then what Odysseus does is he begins to tell the Phaeacians the story of his journey. And so in this court, Odysseus will recount his adventures thus far, beginning with stop number 1, Ismarus. The first stop that Odysseus and all of his men make after they're victorious at Troy is the land of Ismarus, where the Ciconians live. And this is a voluntary stop. They don't necessarily need to stop here, but they land and they pretty much pillage and plunder. They come off really like pirates here in this episode. They destroy the city, they kill the men, seize the women, they take treasures, and you can kind of see the ships in the background. This is what our painting is of here. And we start to see a really big contrast between Odysseus and his men. In that Odysseus is wise and clever, and his men come off as pretty foolish. He says that, after they pillage and plunder, instead of leaving, they have a party. They have a sheep roast. They get drunk on the beach. They kill extra sheep. They have a big party, and they basically just wait for the survivors to run and get help from neighbors. And so they end up having a battle and losing a lot of men. And so this is a great point to note that Odysseus has more than one ship. As a king, he sent multiple ships of his men with him into battle, and so they're all returning home now. At least the ones who survived this episode. But we should also remember, as Odysseus talks about the way that his men act and the way that he interacts with everybody, that he is the one telling us this story. When he says, oh, Odysseus was so smart and so clever and his men were so foolish, what idiots. He is our narrator. So we have to take what he says with a grain of salt and wonder just how objectively is he recounting what happened. So the men, all of the survivors of the land of the Cicones, they get back into their ships. So we leave two, and then we're caught into a big storm. They're caught for 10 days when they finally make it to number 3, the land of the Lotus Eaters. The Lotus Eaters are some of my favorite characters here. So they land finally after that big storm, and they find inhabitants who are friendly. They're not threatening. There's no need to kill or pillage or threaten. They're just great, cool people that share this really delicious fruit that they have. And so 3 of Odysseus's men eat this intoxicating fruit, this intoxicating lotus. And when you eat of it, you forget about home, about your desire to return. And so this is a really unique threat to Odysseus's journey. And if you have seen the Percy Jackson movie, hopefully you're thinking of the casino. I think it's called the Lotus Casino. Yeah, so these questions, I want you to consider whether or not the Lotus Eaters are dangerous and why you come to that conclusion. Are they really a threat to Odysseus or not?